Alrighty then, we are gonna can ourselves up some black-eyed peas, and we are gonna use the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. And on page 390, it tells us how to do it. It ain't hard, it is just canning. But we are gonna use pressure canner. You do need to safely can these. So I won't get a whole lot, I only have a large bag and a small, but black-eyed peas in any amount are always good. I do run my peas through a little sieve, and the easiest way to tell if they're clean when you're running water is put your hand under it. These were very, very clean. I've picked through and only found like 3 or 4 sort of odd beans. Here's one. If you can see it, if it'll move. There we go. So I'm going to fill this with water with my pot filler, and then I'm going to bring this to a boil for 3 minutes, just as the book tells me. And again, it ain't hard. It's just canning some black-eyed peas. And you can never have too many black-eyed peas canned. Alrighty then, I've got my black-eyed peas on to boil. I have my little cheat sheet here that I'll write down my vent start time, even though I set a timer. And once these have come to a boil, I will turn my pressure canner on to about medium, so that I'm transferring hot liquid into a hot jar that's then going into hot water, because we don't want to shock a jar like if we had it hot and I just set it in the inches of water that I have in my pressure canner. So all we're going to do is make every effort to not break a jar. So hot liquid into a hot jar into a hot pressure canner. It ain't hard, it's just canning. See what I'm saying? You know. Alrighty then, they boiled for 3 minutes. My canner is getting hot, so I'm not putting a hot jar into cool water. So let me get our first jar. And the jar is hot, so I'm going to put a little UV glove on. You all know that's called Husband Interruptus. So I'm going to use a slotted spoon. Let's get our funnel on. And remember, we need 1 inch of headspace. And the noise in the background is my proper kettle, so that if I need more hot water, I can add it than what I have in this pot. So I'm going to get the ladle and ladle in some water. And remember, we have to use our Pokey Joe, because you need to remove any air bubbles. And we're going for 1 inch of headspace. Nothing higher. So let's Pokey Joe and see where we are. Get your Pokey Joe in there and get it moving. All right. Let's wipe our rim. And make sure that I'm not over that 1 inch. I think I'm a little over. I don't like to use a metal spoon, but I'm not going to touch the sides with it. At this point, if you wanted to, you could add ½ a teaspoon of salt. It's not for preserving it, it's just for flavor. I choose not to put it in. When you open it, you could then add or fry up a little bit of bacon or a piece of ham hock and get that flavor in there. All right, so we Pokey Joe'd after we changed our water. We're gonna wipe our rim again. Oh yeah, we nailed it that time. We did have too much. Use your magnetic end. Get your hot lid. And your ring. What's hot? And I've said it before, I use the limp wrist method. It works for me. I hang my wrist as far as my fingers will go. And there's one in the canner. So I'm just going to repeat it. It ain't hard. You can do it. Alrighty. Hot jar. Hot contents. I've got 2 in the canner. Now, let's get water. And it is hot. Nailed it. Okay. Let's clean off our rim. Get a lid. Hot. Get a little ring on there. And let's see how many we get. All right, there it is. It's come up. I do already have a steady stream, if I can find it. And I'm going to put my timer on 10 minutes and write the time down. There is a very clear, steady stream. So that's what we wait for. Now our vent timer is on 10 minutes. It ain't hard. You can do it. 10 minutes. Don't put it on your microwave or somebody will come in and make something and you lose it. Write it down, put it on a timer. See you in 10. Our 10-minute vent time was up, so I put my weight on it. For my area, it is 10 pounds. So now my pressure is going to start to come up, and for my area, it's 10 pounds, which is actually 11. But anywho, once it reaches that, I do have to move it to my back smaller burner from my super burner, but I'm going to time it for 40 minutes of process time. So I have these black-eyed peas in pint jars, and if you were using quarts, you time it or process it for 50 minutes. This is very quickly going to get up to pressure with my dial gauge. And once that starts rocking, I know it's time to start my timer for 40 minutes. So these will be great canned. I'm going to get some salt, black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder in my leftovers and get them simmering to have with our pork chops. It ain't hard. I got pork chops in the crock pot, black-eyed peas processing, a clean kitchen now, and some black-eyed peas for dinner simmering on the stove. So nothing goes to waste when you're a canner. So here it is on my dial gauge. Now watch my little rocker start to pick up. So I like to use both. There it goes wiggling if I can keep the camera still. So now I'm going to get my husband to move it to the back burner for me since it's full. Not hard. So my husband moved it to the back burner for me just because he can do it with some kind of grease. And for me, I get my dial just a little bit above low, and it's going to simmer down now a little bit to about 11 pounds. But the sound you hear is this little rocker. And if it started going, woo, 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 I'd know my pressure's too high. It ain't hard, you're just canning. So I've written down the process time, start time, and I've got my timer on 40 minutes. If you're doing quarts, you do 50 minutes. Rocka, rocka, rocka. Alrighty, my 40 minutes is up. I have turned off my burner. And now my canner needs to cool. My dial gauge will drop down to 0. My petcock, but it's not, will drop down. I'll then take my little weight off and I'll still wait 10 minutes before I take these jars out. So 40 minutes of processing time, and my leftover black-eyed peas are cooking away in some bacon. And life is good here at the Marshmouse. Just canning, it ain't hard. Alrighty then, I've taken them out of the canner and I got myself 8 beautiful pints. And I am a canning nerd. There is nothing more fun than watching the science. And it is a science from headspace to process time to whether it calls for water bath canning or pressure canning. That even after letting that canner drop pressure, sit there for 10 minutes, these jars are still processing. So just follow the safe rules of canning, and that includes your headspace. It's very important. This called for 1 inch of headspace, and these look fabulous. I'm just going to stare at my jars for a while as they bubble along. And remember, canning ain't hard. If I can, you can can. Delicious food. And black-eyed peas are super inexpensive and a great pint or quart jar to have in your pantry. Have a great one. And remember, keep it weird.